And then lastly, the Stockholm Convention. So here the scope are POPs, are persistent organic pollutants, which are specific types of chemicals which are resistant, which travel across the world. They do not dilute in anything. They just get their stock. They stock in fatty tissues, and they just become a poison, right, for everyone. And here the convention, you'll see, is very, I mean, although the scope is limited in terms of obligation, it will remind you probably of Montreal Protocol, or if you know Minamata. So it's a convention that has determined that POPs are bad. There's no other way about it. So they have to ultimately be eliminated. The thing is how to get there. And the convention allows different tracks. The first track is for the POPs that are listed in Annex A. Then the goal is to prohibit, eliminate production, use, import, export, etc. There's a little bit of leeway there, that even if the goal is to eliminate the POP, a party may, during 5 years, register for an exemption, but only specific exemptions that have been deemed by the COPs to be acceptable. So it's constrained. For those POPs that are in Annex B, they only have to be restricted. And so there are some what we call acceptable purposes. Parties can still use the chemical for some purposes, but you have some examples of chemicals, so the POPs that were listed in Annex B, and then you have an evaluation of the continued need of the POP, and if there's no really a continued need, it might move to Annex A towards elimination. So the Annex A and Annex B, they list the POPs that are intentionally produced. Annex C looks at POPs that are unintentionally produced. And then there's a provision about stockpiles and wastes. So what do you have to do with POPs once they have become waste? And waste is actually, with POPs, the common denominator to the 3 conventions. You will have some POPs that are listed under Rotterdam and Stockholm, obviously. When they become waste, they'll be covered by Basel. So that's how you can find the lowest common denominator. But that's just one small entry point to synergies. Synergies are actually, you can find many angles to enter this synergies approach. And then when it comes to the more, the institutional structure or more formal obligations, there's an obligation to report every 4 years. There's also an obligation to develop a national implementation plan, because those obligations can be extremely stringent, and difficult to adjust to for some parties. So the idea is that every party has to have this plan. And you also have obligations to notify information to the Secretariat, whether it's country contacts or exemptions. If a party wants to register for exemptions, it has to go through this process of registering, and then there's a registry, and everybody knows about how parties are actually producing, using the chemical, because this constrains the regime to import and export the chemical. And for this one, because of its very nature, there is a financial mechanism, and the GEF has been appointed as the interim financial mechanism. In addition to that, there's an obligation for developed countries to provide financial and technical assistance to developing countries and EITs. And in this Article 13, I think paragraph 4, there's this standard language, post-Rio language. It started with the Montreal Protocol, but the idea is that the extent to which developing countries, EITs, implement their obligations will depend on the extent to which developed countries actually provide the financial assistance. This is where everything is tied up together. So 13.4 is, of course, when you talk about compliance, a large group of parties think it's really important to highlight this provision. And in the Stockholm Convention, also an express legal basis to develop procedures and mechanisms on compliance, and it's a copy-paste of the article in the Rotterdam Convention.